It was a quiet Tuesday evening when I shattered our peaceful life with 3 words: I want him. My husband, Daniel, stared at me. His blue eyes, usually warm, now a mix of confusion and hurt. I'd just confessed my deepest, darkest desire, one that had tormented me for months. I wanted to be with a black man. Daniel and I had been married for 10 years, living comfortably in our Asheville, North Carolina, home with its picket fence and our golden retriever, Cooper. But beneath our seemingly perfect marriage, I felt a growing restlessness. It wasn't that I didn't love Daniel, I did. But something was missing. Something I couldn't put into words until that fateful evening. "What do you mean, you want him?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling with anger and disbelief. I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. "I mean, I want to experience being with a black man, just once. I need to know. Daniel, I need to know. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy. Daniel stared at me, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I saw the hurt in his eyes, but also something else: curiosity, or maybe a twisted understanding. "Are you serious?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. "I'm so sorry. Daniel, I don't want to hurt you, but I can't keep this inside anymore. I need to know." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. For a moment, I thought he'd yell or storm out, but instead, he surprised me. "Okay," he said softly. "If this is what you need, I'll help you." I stared, stunned. "You mean, you'll help me?" Daniel looked away, his jaw tight. "I mean, I'll find someone who can give you what you want. But afterward, we never talk about this again, understood?" I nodded, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe it. Daniel, my devoted, loving husband, was willing to go to extremes to fulfill my desire. Yet, even as part of me felt grateful, another part couldn't shake the feeling we were crossing a line with no return. Over the next few days, Daniel kept his promise. He started searching for someone to satisfy my fantasy. It was surreal, watching him make calls and send messages, all to indulge my curiosity. I felt a strange mix of guilt and excitement, knowing my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet grasp. One evening, Daniel came home with an odd look. "I found someone," he said simply. My heart skipped. "Who is he?" Daniel hesitated, as if still unsure about what he was doing. "His name's Isaiah Carter. He's exactly what you asked for. I arranged for him to come tomorrow night." A flood of emotions surged: excitement, fear, guilt, and something I couldn't name. "Thank you, Daniel," I whispered, though the words felt inadequate. He nodded, but there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Don't make me regret this." Okay, I promised I wouldn't, but deep down, I knew whatever happened, our life would never be the same. The next evening, the air in our house was thick with tension. Daniel had been silent all day, his usual cheer replaced by a grim quiet that twisted my stomach. I knew he was struggling with what we were about to do, but he'd promised, and Daniel was a man of his word. I spent the day preparing, though I wasn't sure what for. I cleaned the house obsessively, as if a spotless living room could offset the chaos I was inviting into our lives. I even cooked dinner, though neither of us had much appetite. When the doorbell rang at 8 p.m, my heart nearly leapt out of my chest. Daniel and I exchanged a glance, and for a moment, I thought he might back out, but he didn't. He stood, walked to the door, and opened it. There stood Isaiah. He was taller than I'd imagined, with broad shoulders and a confident stance that commanded attention. His dark skin seemed to glow under the porch light, and his deep brown eyes met mine with an intensity that weakened my knees. He dressed casually, a fitted shirt and jeans, but there was a sophistication about him that made it clear he wasn't just some random guy Daniel found online. "You must be Isaiah," Daniel said, his voice strained. "That's me," Isaiah replied, his voice smooth and deep. He extended a hand, and Daniel shook it, though the gesture felt more like a ritual than a welcome. "Come in," Daniel said, stepping aside. As Isaiah passed me, I caught a whiff of his cologne, warm, spicy, sending a shiver through me. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that flushed my cheeks. "You must be Rachel," he said, his eyes lingering a moment longer than necessary. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes." Daniel cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Let's sit," he said, gesturing toward the living room. We all sat, though the atmosphere was anything but comfortable. Daniel took his usual armchair, hands clenched in his lap, while Isaiah and I sat at opposite ends of the couch. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Finally, Isaiah broke the silence. "So, Daniel tells me you want to explore something new," he said, his tone casual, like we were discussing the weather. I glanced at Daniel, who stared at the floor, his jaw tight. "Yes," I said, forcing myself to meet Isaiah's gaze. "I've never been with a black man before, and I want to know what it's like." Isaiah nodded, as if he'd heard this before. "I understand. I'm here to make sure you have a good experience. But before we go further, I need to know we're all on the same page." He looked at Daniel, who finally looked up. "What do you mean?" Daniel asked, his voice tense. "I mean," Isaiah said, leaning forward slightly. "This is your wife, and I respect that. I'm not here to cause trouble in your marriage. I'm here to provide a service. And once it's done, I'm gone, no strings attached." Daniel nodded, though I saw the conflict in his eyes. Understood. Isaiah turned back to me, his voice softening. "I want to make sure you're comfortable with this. If at any point you want to stop, just say so, and we will. No questions asked." I nodded, though my throat felt too dry to speak. Isaiah leaned back, satisfied. "All right then," he said. "Let's get to it." Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "I'll be in the other room," he said, his voice tight. I reached for him, but he pulled away before I could touch him. "Daniel," I started, but he shook his head. "Just do what you need to do," he said, walking out. I watched him go, a lump forming in my throat. I wanted to run after him, to tell him I'd changed my mind, that this wasn't worth the pain it was causing him. But another part of me, the part that had craved this experience, kept me rooted. Isaiah cleared his throat, pulling my attention back. "You ready?" he asked softly. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Yes," I said, though my voice trembled. Isaiah stood and offered his hand. I hesitated before taking it, his warm grip sending a jolt through me. He led me to the bedroom, where the air felt heavy with anticipation. As the door closed behind us, I felt both exhilarated and guilty. Isaiah faced me, his eyes searching mine. "You sure about this?" he asked one last time. I nodded, my heart pounding. He leaned down and kissed me, a kiss both gentle and commanding. In that moment, my doubts and fears melted, replaced by a hunger I'd never known. But even as I lost myself in the experience, a small part of me wondered what Daniel was doing in the other room, and whether our marriage could ever recover. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting shadows on the walls. Isaiah's presence filled the space, his confidence radiating like heat from a fire. I stood there, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. My hands trembled as I tried to steady my breathing, but the weight of what was about to happen pressed down like a storm cloud. Isaiah stepped closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "Relax," he said, his voice low and soothing. "This is about you. Let me take care of you." His words were meant to comfort, but they only heightened my unease. I glanced at the closed door, wondering if Daniel was still in the house. Was he in the living room, staring at the wall, trying to block out the sounds? Or had he left? Unable to bear the thought of what was happening just steps away, Isaiah noticed my hesitation and gently cupped my face. "If you're not ready, we can stop," he said softly. "It's your call." I shook my head, forcing myself to focus on him. "No, I'm ready. I want this." He studied me, as if gauging my sincerity, then nodded and leaned in. His lips met mine, the kiss slow and deliberate. His hands slid to my waist, pulling me closer. A wave of warmth spread through me, my body responding to his touch in ways I hadn't expected. But even as I kissed him back, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions: guilt, excitement, fear, desire, all vying for control, leaving me both exhilarated and terrified. I dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure I was ready. Isaiah seemed to sense my inner turmoil and pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. "You're thinking too much," he said with a small smile. "Just feel—" I nodded, trying to push my thoughts aside. He was right, I needed to stop overthinking and let myself experience this. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and focused on the sensation of his hands on my skin, the warmth of his body against mine. He kissed me again, this time with more urgency. His hands roamed my body, as if memorizing every curve. I felt myself melting into him, my earlier doubts fading as desire took over. His touch was electric, sending shivers through me as he explored with a confidence that left me breathless. When he finally undressed me, I felt both vulnerable and exhilarated. His eyes darkened as he took me in, and for a moment, I felt like the most beautiful woman in the world. Then he began to undress, and I was struck by his physique, muscular, perfectly proportioned. Unlike anything I'd seen, I couldn't help but stare, my mouth dry as I took him in. "Like what you see?" he asked, his voice teasing. I nodded, speechless. He stepped closer, his hands resting on my hips as he kissed me again. This time, there was no hesitation. I wanted him, and I was ready to take the final step. When he entered me, I gasped, the sensation overwhelming. It was different from anything I'd experienced, deeper, more intense, all-consuming. I clung to him, my nails digging into his back as he moved with a rhythm that stole my breath. Every touch, every motion was designed to bring me pleasure, and I felt myself losing control in ways I hadn't thought possible. But even as my body responded, my mind couldn't fully let go. Images of Daniel flashed in my head, his pain, his confusion etched into my memory. I tried to push them away, to focus on the moment, but they lingered, casting a shadow over what should have been pure ecstasy. Isaiah sensed my distraction and slowed. His eyes locked on mine. "Stay with me," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "This is your moment. Don't let anything take it from you." I nodded, forcing myself to focus on him. He was right, this was my moment, and I needed to embrace it fully. I closed my eyes and let myself feel every sensation, amplified as I surrendered to the experience. When it was over, I lay there, my body trembling as I tried to process what had happened. Isaiah stayed beside me, his hand resting lightly on my stomach as we both caught our breath. For a few minutes, silence filled the room, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioner. "How do you feel?" he asked after a while, his voice breaking the quiet. I thought about it before answering. "I don't know," I admitted. "It was incredible, but I also feel guilty." He nodded, as if he'd expected that. "That's normal. What you're feeling is complicated, and it's okay to take time to process it." I turned to him, surprised by his understanding. "You're not upset?" He shook his head. "This is what I do. I help people explore their desires, but I also know it's not always easy. You're not the first to feel this way, and you won't be the last." His words were comforting, but they didn't fully ease the guilt in my chest. I knew what I'd done would have consequences, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face them. Isaiah sat up and began dressing, his movements calm and unhurried. "I'll let you rest," he said when he was done. "If you need anything, let me know." I nodded, watching as he walked to the door. He paused before opening it, turning back to me. "Take care of yourself," he said softly. "And remember, this doesn't define you." With that, he was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. The experience had been everything I'd imagined and more, but it also left me feeling empty, like I'd lost a part of myself in the process. As I drifted to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life and my marriage would never be the same. The next morning was too quiet. The house felt like a tomb, the air heavy with unspoken words and unresolved tension. I woke alone, the sheets still rumpled from the night before. For a moment, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together my fragmented thoughts. Memories of the night flooded back, and with them came a wave of guilt that threatened to drown me. I rose slowly, my body aching in places I hadn't known could ache. I pulled on a robe and shuffled to the bathroom, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. I didn't want to see the woman staring back, the one who'd betrayed her husband in the most intimate way. When I finally ventured out of the bedroom, I found Daniel at the kitchen table, a coffee mug in front of him. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the silence between us deafening. "Morning," I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. Daniel didn't respond right away. He just looked at me, his blue eyes cold and distant. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. "Did you get what you wanted?" The question hit me like a punch. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. What could I say? That it was everything I'd imagined, that I'd enjoyed it, even as it tore me apart, that I was sorry, but I wasn't sure I regretted it. Daniel didn't wait for an answer. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "I need some air," he said, grabbing his keys from the counter. "Daniel, wait," I started, but he was already out the door before I could finish. I stood frozen as the sound of his car engine roared to life and faded into the distance. The house felt emptier without him, the silence pressing down like a weight. I sank into a chair, my legs too weak to hold me. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to keep busy cleaning, doing laundry, but my mind kept drifting to the night before. I couldn't stop thinking about Isaiah. His touch, his voice, the way he'd made me feel. But those thoughts came with a pang of guilt, a reminder of what I'd done to Daniel. When Daniel returned that evening, the tension in the house was palpable. He didn't speak as he walked in, just headed straight to the living room and turned on the TV. I stood in the doorway, unsure what to do. "Daniel," I said finally, my voice trembling. "Can we talk?" He didn't look at me. "Talk about what?" "I just want to know how you're feeling," I said, taking a cautious step into the room. Daniel turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger. "How I'm feeling? How do you think I'm feeling?" "Rachel, I just helped my wife sleep with another man. How do you think I feel?" I flinched at the venom in his voice. "I'm sorry," I said, tears spilling over. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did, Rachel. You hurt me. You hurt us. And for what? Some fantasy? Some curiosity? Was it worth it?" I had no answer. The truth was, I didn't know if it was worth it. The experience had been everything I'd imagined, but it came at a cost, one I wasn't sure I was ready to pay. Daniel stood, his fists clenched. "I can't do this," he said, his voice breaking. "I can't pretend everything's okay. I need space." "Space," I repeated, my heart sinking. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm leaving." "Rachel," he said, his voice final. "I'm staying at a hotel for a few days. I need time to think." "Daniel, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "Don't go. We can work through this." But he was already gone, grabbing his suitcase from the closet and throwing clothes into it. I stood helpless as he packed and headed for the door. "Daniel," I said one last time, my voice barely a whisper. He paused, his hand on the knob, but didn't turn back. "I'll call you," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Then he was gone, the door slamming behind him. I sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. The weight of what I'd done crashed over me, leaving me hollow. The days after Daniel left were the loneliest of my life. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, felt like a prison. Every room reminded me of him: the couch where we'd watched movies, the kitchen table where we'd shared meals, the bed where we'd slept side by side for 10 years, now empty, silent, and cold. I tried to stay busy with work and chores, but nothing distracted me from the gnawing guilt in my chest. I replayed the night with Isaiah over and over, trying to understand if it had been worth it. Had I really needed to know what it was like to be with someone else, even if it meant destroying my marriage? The answer, I realized, was no, it wasn't worth it. A week after Daniel left, I gathered the courage to call him. My hands shook as I dialed, my heart pounding as I waited for him to answer. When he finally did, his voice was cold and distant. "Hello, Daniel," I said, my voice trembling. "It's me." A long pause. "What do you want, Rachel?" "I just wanted to see how you're doing," I said, though the words felt inadequate. Daniel sighed heavily. "I'm fine," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I've been thinking a lot." "Daniel, I'm so sorry," I said quickly. I never meant to hurt you. I was selfish, and I made a terrible mistake. But I love you, and I want to fix this. Please come home so we can talk." Another long pause, and for a moment, I thought he might hang up. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. "Rachel, I don't know if I can come back. What you did, it changed everything. I don't know if I can look at you the same way anymore." His words hit like a blow. I'd known this was possible, but hearing it made it real. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to find the right words. "Daniel, please," I begged. "I know I messed up, but we've been through so much together. We can get through this too. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right." Daniel was silent for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "I need more time, Rachel. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I need time to figure it out." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Okay," I said. My voice choked. "Take all the time you need. Just please don't give up on us." He didn't respond, and after a moment, the line went dead. I sat there, clutching the phone to my chest, sobs racking my body. I'd never felt so alone. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel and I grew further apart. We spoke occasionally, but the conversations were stilted, filled with unspoken pain and regret. I tried to give him the space he needed, but it was hard. I missed him, his smile, the way he held me at night. I missed the life we'd built together, and I hated myself for throwing it away. One evening, sitting alone in the living room, I found myself thinking about Isaiah. I hadn't heard from him since that night, and I was grateful. He'd been a means to an end, a way to explore a fantasy, but he was also the catalyst for my marriage's destruction. I couldn't blame him, he'd done exactly what I asked. The fault lay squarely with me. I thought about what Isaiah had said that night. "This doesn't define you." I hadn't understood then, but I did now. What I'd done was a mistake, but it didn't have to be my end. I could learn from it, grow, and maybe one day forgive myself. But forgiving myself was easier said than done. Every night, lying alone in bed, I was haunted by the choices I'd made. I wondered if Daniel would ever come back, or if our marriage was truly over. I wondered if I could ever move on, or if I'd be stuck in this limbo of guilt and regret forever. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Daniel. My hands shook as I opened it, my heart pounding. The letter was short, but its words cut deep. "Rachel, I've thought a lot over the past few months, and I've decided I can't come back. What happened between us is something I can't get past. I'll always care about you, but I don't think we can fix this. I'm filing for divorce. I'm sorry. Daniel." I read the letter over and over, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. My marriage, my life with Daniel. Everything we'd built, it was gone, and it was all my fault. I sat there for a long time, the letter clutched in my hands, the weight of regret crushing me. I'd gotten what I wanted, but in the process, I'd lost everything that truly mattered. Every choice has consequences, and sometimes what we think we want can cost us what we truly need. Love, trust, and respect are the foundation of any relationship. Once broken, they're not easily repaired. before chasing a fleeting desire. Ask yourself if it's worth the cost. Sometimes, the greatest wisdom lies in knowing when to let curiosity go and hold tight to what truly matters.